to call this meeting to order. This is the City of Southfield Planning Commission study meeting for July 14th, 2021, conducted via WebEx teleconference. I have a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Culpepper.
Here.
Mr. Huntington.
Present.
Dr. Stevens-Gunn.
Present.
Mr. Willis.
Here.
Ms. Mia. Does not look like she's on. I did just get an email from Mr. Martin that he is having connection issues. So for the moment, he's trying to get back on. But Mr. Chairman, you do have a quorum to conduct business this evening.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
City Chair, this is Commissioner Culpepper.
Yes.
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
This is Commissioner
Support, Commissioner Huntington.
All right. Got a motion by Commissioner Culpepper, supported by Commissioner Willis, for approval of the agenda. May I have a roll call vote on the agenda?
Yes, sir. Mr. Culpepper.
Yes.
Mr. Huntington. Mr. Huntington.
Yes.
Dr. Stevens-Gunn.
Yes.
Mr. Willis.
Yes.
And Mr. Griffith.
Yes.
Okay, you do have an approval of your agenda this evening.
Okay. First item we have is PSLU 21-0004.
Yeah, if I may, and it looks like, hold on for a moment, Mr. Martin may now be on the meeting. Let's give him a second. Let's see if he has a connection before we move on. Mr. Martin, you're on mute, so if you can unmute yourself. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay for us to move on, he may still be having some issues.
Okay.
So with regard to this first item, PSLU 21-0004, I'd first like to ask if I don't see the petitioner on the line. Mr. Salama, are you on the line? I'm not seeing his name either on the participant list, and then the only person on the attendee list is Mr. Huntington. Mr. Chairman, because the petitioner is not on, I'm kind of hesitant to speak on this particular item to start out. So with your permission, can we move down to the next item, PSB 21-0001? I'll try and reach out to Mr. Salama to see if maybe he has an issue with tonight's meeting or not.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's jump ahead to item number 2 on the agenda then.
Okay, so yes, so this is PSV 21-0001. This is a vacation request of Armenian Apostolic Society to vacate a 40-foot wide Cardiff Place right-of-way adjacent to and north of lots 557 and 20-foot wide public alley adjacent to and east of lots 546 to 557, inclusive of Magnolia number 1 subdivision. So you can see the overall property that this is affecting. This is a little bit of a more close-up view of the project itself, or the property itself. Kyle, if you can go to the next slide. This kind of gives you an indication of at least what's in that particular area. And actually, this is the roadway that is currently existing, that is part of the Armenian Apostolic Society's property. If you look directly to the right of where these barriers are, that is actually where the right-of-way portion is that the petitioner is seeking to have vacated. If you can go to the next slide. So the area in mind here is actually the dogleg section that goes north and south along where I showed you where that driveway was. Currently, as you can tell, there's landscaping in that particular section. There's a little bit of a roadway. The existing building was actually constructed within this particular area. And then as the dogleg kind of goes east-west, it opens up to Southfield Road. One of the reasons why this is coming before you is initially it was thought that this particular area was vacated years and years and years ago. However, we could not find any kind of evidence that it got recorded with the county. So obviously it's been used not as right-of-way for a very long time, but has been constructed on and actually be used as part of the church site and then the Manugian school site. We can go to the next slide. So as you can see, that area in blue, that is the area that is before you for alley vacation. Next slide. And this is what the entire site would look like once that area is vacated. As you know, half of that area goes to one property and then half of it goes to the other site. In essence, the same property owner owns both properties, but just how lot splits or these types of vacations work, there would have to be a lot combination in the future that would join these two pieces of property together. Because again, as I had noted, the existing alley would be split in half, and then half would go north and south, and half would go east and west. So there would be a lot combination that would be required. Next slide. And so again, this basically shows the area that is before you this evening for discussion for vacation. We do have Mr. Mark Perry on the line this evening, as well as I believe there's also a member of the church and the school on as well. Mark, if there's anything else that you would like to add to the presentation that's been made thus far, now is your opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Jeff, and certainly thank you to the members. As introduced, good evening. My name is Mark Perry, and I'm president of Perry & Company, located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. On behalf of my client, the owner of the property is the Armenian Apostolic Society. I want to thank you for the opportunity to consider my client's request of formally vacating the remnants of former Cardiff Place and adjacent alley. The history of the church and school campus property dates back to the 1950s, when the platted lands making up the campus were vacated and dozens of parcels were combined into what we believed at the time a single parcel. When searching the property assessment records and GIS parcel maps, we discovered that there was a second assessment parcel separated from the main campus parcel by an unvacated alley in Cardiff Place. It's my client's desire to have the remaining portion of Cardiff and adjacent alley vacated. Thank you for the opportunity to present our request, and I'm available and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Jeff, or just open it up to the commissioners at this time?
Yeah, again, just open up to the commissioners, and if I could just add, at least from our standpoint, and I'm sure Mark would agree. I mean, this particular alley, again, it's been used for years. It really serves no useful purpose anymore, so the planning department has no issues at all supporting the vacation of this alley.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions, comments?
To the chair, this is Commissioner Culpepper.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. I think this makes perfect sense to do this because number one is the owner does own both of those parcels, and he just, to me, it just making it a little more consistent with what the church and the school has. And due to the fact that there was under assumption that this was done years ago. So this is just bringing everything into compliance, as far as I'm concerned, to make this more applicable. So I support this 100%, and I think it's a good move. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
This is Geraldine Stevens, gun to the chair.
Yes.
I agree with everything that Mr. Culpepper says. I think it makes logical sense, and I'd like to see it done.
Okay, through the chair, Commissioner Huntington.
Yes.
Same thing, I think is good for the business itself, and I think is also best for the city of Southfield.
Okay.
If I may, Father joined us. Father, do you want to introduce yourself?
Looks like you just need to unmute.
I'm not familiar with this platform. So, Father Hadan Jabejan, I'm the pastor of St. John Armenian Orthodox Church, and we have a wonderful relationship, not only with the school and also the Apostolic Society. We're grateful to Mark Perry for all of his work that he's been putting in, and we are honored to have our house of worship, the largest house of worship in the state of Michigan here in Southfield. And this has been, if nothing else, an eyesore for a number of years, and we'd like to sort of just get this resolved so that we can then permanently close this off. It's a danger. Many of you have driven by it, and in the past few years, we've 10, 11 o'clock at night, we found cars up on the concrete barriers. That's how dangerous that corner can be. So if we can find a solution to this, we would certainly be grateful, and we appreciate any cooperation you can give.
Okay, thank you. Makes complete sense to me as well. Anything else from the planning department at this time, or are we just ready to move this along to the official meeting?
Yeah, I guess just a quick question. It sounds like maybe are you planning on closing that particular road then? Is that what it sounded like? That's what the plan was this area is an eyesore, and are you thinking about closing that section of road because it is blocked off now?
Yes is the short answer to the questions. However, we haven't begun any due diligence or any design yet, and this would be the step one of gaining access, ownership access, so we could control that section of the southwest corner of the campus. And the next step would be to meet with planning and figure out how we properly close, as well as aesthetically clean that area up. Not only to the benefit of the school and the church, but probably as important to the neighborhood, because we just need to clean that area up. To the
okay, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mark. Obviously, it will take an administrative site plan review to do that. So
right.
When it comes time, obviously the vacation is step number one. Number two would be, just put some plans together when you're ready. Just give us a call, and then we can set up a meeting to talk about next steps.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. That's staff doesn't have anything else, Mr. Chairman. So if the Planning Commission is comfortable, which it sounds like they are, then we can just move this to the July 28th meeting and no further discussion required.
I think that makes sense. Okay. Do you want to jump onto the text amendments right now? It looks like we're still waiting on the other.
Please do. I did send an email to the petitioner for the first item. I have yet to hear anything back from him. If we can move on to the text amendments, then we can follow up when those are completed and see if Mr. Salama has made an effort to get a hold of me. So with regard to this particular item, actually Mr. Bryce is going to handle the text amendment explanations there. There are a lot of them. So over the last couple of months, we have worked hard to make some changes to the zoning ordinance text. And as I had noted, Kyle will be making this presentation this evening.
Good evening, planning commissioners. So everything is wrapped up under PZTA 21-0004. Like Jeff mentioned, rather than kind of having these go piecemeal, we waited, so we got a big batch. A lot of these are just cleaning up the ordinance. There's a lot of inconsistencies that have built up over the years, so we're trying to clean it up. And in addition to that, we've added some new items. Every now and then we have applicants who come to us and they want to do a certain type of building or a certain type of use, and we don't even have it on our books. So that kind of puts us in a difficult position. So we've got this list here before you. So without any further ado, I can go through these one by one. The first is personal services. Personal services refers generally to any kind of use where you would go to the establishment and have something done. Generally, you would think of like a salon or a barber shop, things like that. Personal services, it never had a nailed down definition, so it had many different definitions, and phrasing throughout the entire zoning ordinance is very inconsistent. So what we did is we nailed it down and we gave it an official definition, so that there's consistency throughout the entire zoning ordinance. So for us, what we came up with was establishments which perform personal services on the premises, such as barbershops, dance studios, dry cleaning and laundry establishments, exercise and fitness classes, repair shops, including watches, radios, television, shoe, and etc., but prohibiting major repair shops such as automotive, heavy equipment, large appliances, furniture, and etc. Salons, which is capitalized intentionally, we'll get to that later. Tanning salons, tattoo shops, and tailor shops. So we're proposing to have this language be applied just for the definition, and then everywhere else in the zoning ordinance where personal services is already existing, we're just going to put personal services, which simplifies it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about this or what this means.
Kyle, I would say the first time I read this, I thought it allowed barbershops but did not allow salons. Why did I think that? Because it says prohibiting major repair shops. Then I see the end parentheses. But then the salons, I don't know. In my mind, I thought there was some intentional difference between barbershops and salons, but it sounds like that's not the case.
No. So salons would be allowed in this, and salons we're actually giving a separate definition too, as we've kind of ran into some weird parking issues with salons and trying to create a standardized parking requirements for that. So for us salons, like I said, it's up later, but that is added as a personal service. And then just so everybody knows, personal services are really permitted in the large majority of our commercial zoning districts. And notably, they're also permitted in OS office service. So it's one of the few really commercial uses that's permitted in office service.
This is Geraldine Stevens Gunn to the chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on. We can.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I have a couple questions. When you say salons, there are all different kinds of salons. They got beauty salons, they have braiding salons, they have all different kinds of salons. So I would encourage you to consider being a little bit more specific about what kinds of salons. The other thing that I think that might be for you to consider would be massage salons or spas. I don't see those listed anywhere, and those are, I would consider those personal services. So those are the two things as I was reading through it that I thought about.
Absolutely. So for us, a salon is really any kind of establishment where there's specific suites within it. I think that's what, because Sarah, I know, wrote our salon language, and that's another item that's before you tonight. As for spas and massages, I think that's a great idea. I know massages we've generally treated as medical, interestingly enough, but I think that could easily be applied here. So thank you for that.
And this is Geraldine again. If you barbershops, there are barbers in salon and there are hairstylists in barbershops. So I guess what I'm suggesting is be a little bit more clear when you say salons and expect, if you're going to single out barbershops, then like I said, you've got braiding salons, you've got weave salons, you've got all different kinds of salons. So just be a little bit more specific about them.
Okay.
To the chair, Commissioner Culpepper.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Gunn hit it right on the head with me. I think this is a great text amendment because what it does is I won't say it's being proactive, but it lists exactly what a petitioner or a proprietor can do in that area. But she brought up the exact point is we got to make sure that our definition of technology fits in with what a salon is or barbershop. So when someone comes in, because I know for a fact we don't allow massage parlors and certain things in the city, but if they come in, they can have some type of definition what's acceptable or not. So I think Dr. Gunn hit it right on the head is we need to spell out and be a little more specific in what's allowed and not. But I think this is a great text amendment, being more specific. Okay. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Rob Willis. I
Yeah,
am
go
just
ahead.
looking at the salons at the bottom sentence, the last sentence. Should that be capital or should that be small s?
So the reason that it's capitalized, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
Okay.
So salon comes up later on tonight, and it's this is our full definition for salons. This is on page 20.
Okay.
So because it is referring, to another definition, that's why it's capitalized.
This is Sherilyn. Can you go back to the definition because that provides a lot more detail.
Sure.
Dollars.
Yeah, beauty treat me up. Oh, yeah. Maybe should have said that, gave a definition first. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I can lead off with this one.
Yeah, I apologize, but Chair.
Yeah, Kyle, do you want to just jump ahead, loop this in, and then
Yeah,
come
like
back to
I mentioned,
alphabetical order, I guess?
yeah, there's quite a few of these, so I mean, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. So the next one is health and fitness centers. There's no existing definition or use. So when people, for instance, would say, "Hey, I want to open a Planet Fitness" or something like that, we didn't really have a great definition or a use of that in the zoning ordinance. So we came up with this, also known as a gym, a facility that houses exercise and weightlifting equipment and exercise and fitness classes for the purposes of physical exercise. And then that's proposed to be applied as a permitted use in RS, RC, and B3. And those are our three biggest commercial zoning districts.
just because we're debating everything, I'll throw this out. We have a client and we've done two large indoor laser tag facilities, 30,000 square feet, give or take. And they are, by definition, in the building code, they fall under a gymnasium, kind of similar to this. And interestingly enough, the same client also has an exercise studio with a rowing franchise, and now she's grouping them in the same location. So one of them's a 3,000 square foot, what would we call it here? A gym or a health and fitness club, and one of them is a 30,000 square foot indoor recreation area, which I guess might be kind of a gray area, but it's more of like an exercise facility, even though it's a large scale game. I don't know if that applies, but I know you have the indoor recreation facilities defined later on as well.
Yeah,
But
that's another one
every city
coming
we
up.
go into, we have to kind of have this conversation with them because there's nothing else like it on the zoning ordinance. So
Right.
it's been interesting for the last few years.
Yeah, and I know the zoning ordinance in a given city doesn't always exactly line up with the building code. Sometimes they translate well, sometimes they seem to speak different languages at times. So just from our perspective in the zoning ordinance, this is what we're proposing for this. Whereas I think the laser tag would definitely apply to our indoor recreation centers.
Okay, thanks.
The next one.
Wait, before you move on, I have a question.
Okay.
All right, I'm struggling trying to understand the difference between the gym and the indoor recreation center, which is on page 30, item number 9, because some of those activities happen in a gym. So is it inclusive, exclusive, or are we just trying to give a little bit more leeway? Just help me out here.
So I think that from the intent of this would be, if you had a gym, you certainly could have an accessory basketball court or accessory racquetball courts, and that's completely fine. We would just consider that ancillary to the health and fitness club use, and so they could certainly have those types of uses with the health and fitness club. I think the indoor recreation center, that's generally something like the 9 Dome, which we talked about, or bowling alley, or something larger and more dedicated to that specific use. Whereas this health and fitness club, I think it's supposed to be a little bit more general.
To the chair, Mr. Martin.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Martin.
I assume, based on what I'm hearing, are you including or looking at things like a pool, what do you call it? The wave pool, or the exercise pool, and that type of stuff also? Because from what I understand, that if you look at things that are at the Franklin Racquet Club, they have the exercise pools, they have a swimming pool. They do water aerobics, that type of thing, and those are in some health facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be part of exercise equipment. I think that's something that we would just roll in with this definition, or at least consider ancillary to it.
Thank you. I apologize for being so late and getting into the meeting. I did not realize that WebEx had a new version out.
Oh, that's no worries. We're happy you're here. If there's nothing else, I'll on. So this is one that came up recently, a pet daycare, which we don't really have anything in the books for this. So when we were looking into that, we realized we don't have anything for kennels either. And we haven't gotten many requests for this, but I know certainly pet daycares are growing in popularity. So there's no existing definition or use. So for kennels, we're looking at a facility that provides overnight boarding for 3 or more pets for no more than 2 consecutive weeks. And for pet daycare, it's a facility that provides short-time, non-overnight daytime care for 3 or more pets. So with that, we looked at some specific conditions for each of these uses. So the kennel, it must have an enclosed dog run or play area, so that can be outdoor, that is designed to prevent any objectionable noise or odor. So specifically, it has to have some sort of design to prevent that noise or odor. So generally that'd be some kind of wall or fencing. In addition, all interior operations must have closed windows and maintain air conditioning to limit noise. And then for the pet daycare, so that's just the daily daycare, non-overnight. Again, it's got to have that dog run or play area that's designed to keep in the nuisances, and it has to maintain closed windows and limit noise. And then we would set hours of operation, which right now we have 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., but that's, we can adjust that. So where this would go, it's proposed as a special land use only in B3. So that does give us a greater degree of control to make sure that those pet noises and odors are in control. But it would be proposed to be permitted outright in our light industrial and industrial zoning districts.
This is Geraldine Stevens Gunn again.
Yes.
Okay, I'm a pet owner and a dog owner specifically. I got a couple questions. The dog run, I would encourage you to be a little bit more specific about a dog run, because a dog run for a 6-pound dog and a dog run for a 60-pound dog can't be the same dog run. That's one. Play area the same way, as well as a little bit more information or specifics about pottying facilities, because that could potentially be an issue. And I'd like to see something included in the ordinance about that, a requirement. And I don't know anything about it, so I'm just throwing that out there. The other thing that I was a little concerned about was the pet daycare hours. Did you solicit anybody about those hours? Because while 6 to 8 may be good, but you may have somebody who's working, at the hospital on afternoons, and just a little bit more leeway. I'd rather leave it out and have the petitioner tell us what their hours are going to be based upon the needs of their community, as opposed to put that as part of the ordinance. Those are my suggestions.
Okay. Those are great.
Yeah, through the chair, Commissioner Huntington.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Hunt.
So we're talking as far as pets, strictly dogs, right? No other animals that are used as pets, but this is strictly for dogs, right?
Well, when you say kennels and you think of pet daycare, you obviously think of dogs, of course. But I think at this time we, looking to keep this kind of general. I don't know if any of these places ever have, mixed animals. I don't know if cats are ever involved at pet daycare. I would imagine some people could kennel their cats. That seems possible to me. So as of right now, we're just keeping it vague with pets rather than dogs.
Okay. I didn't know if we need to be more specific about it or not, but generally, like you're saying, generally it's dogs, but people have some strange pets sometimes that are illegal. So I'm not sure if we need to specify or not, but just wanted to get some clarification of what you were thinking.
This is Commissioner Rob Willis. Could you go back one page, I think, to 17? I'm looking at kennel required condition. The facility must have an enclosed dog run or play area that is designed to prevent any objectionable noise or odor. Odor seems to be a condition that's at least potential the entire time pets are there. seems that the only time you're looking at addressing odor is during the time when they are in a play area. Seems like that would be more generic, that condition, you must have something going on to prevent odor all the time.
Okay.
I was gonna piggyback on that. I've been dealing with for the last 2 weeks a noise ordinance in a city that is impossible to achieve. This is also impossible. It says any. You cannot. It must prevent any objectionable noise or odor. So that's every speck of sound, every hint of odor. So I don't think that's realistic. I don't know what the right way to say it is, but the general conditions that we have of like noise, dust, all that kind of stuff. You would obviously want to limit the noise, but to prevent any noise is impossible.
Okay.
And odor is very difficult. I know a lot of the cities, like for cannabis projects especially, they call for a filtered ventilation system, which would probably be applicable on an indoor, dog kennel as well, something to that effect. I mean, I like the idea of like saying you have to have air conditioning and enclosed buildings, which again you could filter the smell through your air conditioning system, but any noise is a very impossible standard. In fact, like 60 decibels that we've been trying to fight to get down to in this industrial park is proved to be impossible, which is pretty loud or decently loud. So just something that's more realistic to further flush out that definition.
Yeah.
If I could just add on to that, I mean, we understand, there's going to be noise. Technically, I think what we're looking at is, we know that, like with the building department, there are particular hours of operation in which you can do construction, because noise becomes objectionable at 11 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, that type of thing. We understand there's going to be noise. So I think what we were looking at was more or less objectionable noise being noise that occurs at hours of the day in which, people are either sleeping or doing other things. So I agree with you that, it's impossible to have no noise. But I think it's noise that is, maybe during a particular time of day or in the evening that we need to design for.
To the chair, Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Martin.
One of the things on limiting noise, why is this echo? Is you have the windows to maintain get echo feedback. That's what I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Anyway, you want to reduce the noise going outside the building. You're not going to limit the noise going out. You're going to maintain the noise inside. So I think you might want to point out you're limiting the noise to limiting exterior noise. And also, when you're talking about maintaining the air conditioning, you're talking about heating and cooling. So it's just full air circulation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so because I know you were talking about the filtering, the odors and that. And one of the problems I know that we had not a couple of years ago was one of the residents had a swimming pool and the neighbor had a dog run that was against the fence that separated his pool area from the residents. And the people did not take care of cleaning up poop scooping every day. So they had quite odorous problem. And that's something that definitely needs to be included. Cleaning of the area from waste, pet waste. And I assume if you're talking kennels, you are talking dogs, but people have cats and put kennels and cats in kennels also. So animals, I think, is correct rather than just saying dogs, pets.
as for the odor, I think we put it here just to, have it in writing and stated. But I mean, we don't, I would assume it's part of the doggy daycare's purview to clean up pet waste. I assume they have people there that are employed with that. I mean, much in the same way we wouldn't put, restaurants have to clean their bathrooms. I mean, that's kind of assumed, I think. So, I mean, we just have to note that even the outdoor portions, you can't have any kind of odor, which would include pet waste pickup.
Well, then possibly you want to say health code conditions, because I'm sure that those are going to take care of the poop scooping and that type of stuff.
Okay. Okay. The next is in data centers in industrial zonings. There's no existing definition. There is an existing use for this in ERO, which is our kind of specialized variant of OS, office service zonings. So we took some of the language from that and tweaked it a bit and made that the definition. And then these data centers are proposed to be permitted outright in light industrial and industrial zonings. And I know for a fact we've had people look at some of our light industrial. They think it's perfect for IT work essentially, but it's not in our zoning ordinance at the moment. We think it'd be a really good fit for that zoning district. So data processing and computer center, it's a facility that houses data processing and networking equipment, information technology services, and accessory office uses.
The chair, leave in that process, you talk about generator, power generation, and generally those are set aside. When we talked about doing the thing for Comcast on the service drive, that's a separate unit. It's not in an enclosed building, but we're including it as an enclosed facility in the changes that were done.
Okay, so you mentioned exterior generator, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think Terry mentioned that too. We can include.
But it's talking about it being
accessory
an enclosed facility, and we were just looking at doing one that's an external for Comcast.
Okay. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I've been dealing with on the project that I started talking about. The generators are typically exterior. They're typically only emergency generators, but they're loud when they're on. So some cities have a noise ordinance, maximum noise ordinance. So the particular city that I've been battling with, I should say, you can put a wall around it, but the wall can only be 6 foot tall. But a 6 foot tall wall won't contain the sound. And then you need all these additional approval processes for building taller walls around the generator, or there's certain things that you can buy. But I guess all that to say, like, if we're expecting a generator, that's one thing. And then if there's a noise level defined for that district or that use, it seems to be where we're having the disconnect on this other project. It's a loud area, but their noise ordinance is lower than the area is without generators running. It's a weird
if I could just add, I do know that our ordinance right now states that the maximum decibel level at the property line is 50 decibels. So, but I understand what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, that, hey, in some cases, the noise level is going to be louder, and can you achieve that 50 decibel level at the property line? And that's just one of the things that between walls and landscaping and other things, we try and achieve that 50-foot decibel level at the property line.
Is it really as low as 50? Because we're struggling
Yep.
to get down to 60. 50 is
Yeah,
pretty quiet.
Yeah, it's specific to 50 at the property line. Yes.
Okay, so there's definitely a giant data center that has very giant generators here on the property line that would never come close to that, I wouldn't think. And so you can do it if you push them well off the property lines in the middle of a big site. That's possible.
Okay. There's nothing else. So now we're back to the salons. Which again, I'll just show real quick. This is the next slide. We have some issues at times setting the parking requirements for salons. So I know Sarah in our office came up with this, and also the salon definition that we talked about earlier. So this use is already within personal services. It's kind of hand in hand with that. Should read this whole thing or not. A personal service establishment which provides beauty treatments and may offer the ancillary sale of retail beauty products. Treatments offered primarily include one or more of the following: cutting, trimming, shampooing, weaving, coloring, waving, or styling hair, facial treatments, application of makeup, including permanent makeup subject to applicable county and state licensing requirements, and providing nail care services such as manicures, pedicures, and nail extensions. And then we do have open concept salons and salon suites. And
This is Geraldine Stevens Gunn.
Go ahead.
My question relates to how does this apply to the salons which are being put inside of commercial buildings? How does this apply?
So what do you mean exactly? How does it apply?
Or I would say the salons that are going in traditional office buildings. So it seems like it would dramatically increase the amount of parking in a professional services office building.
There's a salon that went into a commercial building on the corner of Northwestern Highway and Lee Baker, and it's created a lot of problems in our community because of the parking. But based upon this, I'm trying to understand. Nobody knew they were going to put the salon in there. It wasn't like it was. They petitioned the planning commission to do it or got business approval to do it, but now we have a salon in this building. So how does this apply? I mean, can they put salons in any building? How does this apply?
The salons are part of personal services, which are permitted outright in most of the commercial zoning districts, and they're also permitted outright in OS office service. So I'm looking at a zoning map here, and it looks like the corner of Lee Baker and Northwestern Highway is OS, so a salon would be permitted there, assuming it meets the parking requirements. So the proposed parking requirements are here. So a salon suite, for instance, would require 3 spaces per suite, plus a half a space for every chair or station located in the shared common areas. So they are very heavy with the parking requirement, I would say. If you have a few different chairs or suites, I mean, it adds up very quickly. And I know you can have people who are getting work done, and then you've got people waiting. So there is a pretty hefty parking demand here. And that's something that building owners have to be aware of when they come in. If they open up space for a salon, it can really eat up at their parking requirement pretty quickly.
If I could just add, especially to Dr. Stevens Gunn, whenever a salon, regardless of the salon, comes in, they are required to get a certificate of occupancy to get into a particular building. When they do that, we then do parking calculations based on not only the salon use, but every other use that's within that particular building to confirm that we have enough parking on site so that there will not be issues. With the one in question, I'm not aware of the salon in the location that you're talking about. We could look into it. But it could be that, unfortunately it does happen. Sometimes tenants go in without our knowledge, and the only reason we find out about it is because we start to get complaints. So it could be that this particular salon did not go through the proper process, and thus now we have an issue out there, it sounds like, with parking, and maybe parking on the street, I'm assuming might be the issue, as a result of a really highly intense use on that site that it wasn't meant for, and there's not enough parking on site to substantiate it.
I realize this is not the right forum for that conversation, and I'll be happy to share with you at another, later on. But yes, it is a major issue. The commercial building that is on the other side of the street has blocked off their parking lot, has put signs up about it. It's an issue. So yes, I would really appreciate someone exploring it just for the commercial tenant that's on the other side of the street as well. Thank you.
So Dr. Stevens, if you could follow up with staff here, just in an email or a phone call tomorrow, then we can then follow up on that.
I'll be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but these are quite a bit more intense than a typical office parking requirement, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, it's really up to the number of chairs.
So a lot of standard office buildings with a certain amount of existing parking spaces are not going to be able to fit salons, or I think the problem really comes in when you have several salons in one building. It's going to be pretty quickly above the allowable amount of parking, or below the required amount of parking spaces, I should say.
Yeah, and we have seen that. We've seen people come in and just adding in a barber shop with a few chairs, it really eats up at their parking requirements. So that's something we try to make aware to the tenants and to property owners when they're trying to get their certificates of occupancy. We know that salons have such a higher rate of use and require more parking. If there's nothing else about salons, so this is a new one that's kind of, starting to blossom in the planning industry, but we have dark stores and ghost restaurants. So we have no existing definition for these. And so these are heavily tied to e-commerce, and they've definitely grown quite a bit during the COVID pandemic. So the first is a dark store, which is a retail outlet facility related to online shopping only. This facility provides fulfillment from its on-premises stock for online orders, coordinates delivery of orders, and is not accessible to the general public. So we're proposing that to be permitted outright in our industrial zoning districts. We also have ghost restaurants, which are also known as virtual restaurants. It is a restaurant that provides food services and delivery for phone and online orders only. This restaurant is not accessible to the general public. So these are both, heavily related to e-commerce. They don't involve the customer going to them at all. But we don't really have anything like this in the zoning ordinance. We're looking specifically at the industrial zonings so that don't lose valuable space in our normal commercial districts. I think we would all rather see fully run and publicly accessible restaurants in commercial areas. But these places certainly have a purpose, but we just think they would work best in our industrial zoning districts.
This is Commissioner Rob Willis. the Ghost Restaurant name is new to me. I think that's an interesting name. But I'm curious, if I decided to develop a Ghost Restaurant, are you as a city then going to ensure the safety of the food, the freshness? Will I have to meet any city code, or is just also, who would my customer be? Would it have to be Southfielders, or could it be people in other cities? It just seemed to be a concept that's new. I love just fill in the pictures for me.
So with regards to health and safety, I mean, it's still technically a restaurant, so it would be applicable to all Oakland County health and safety guidelines. I know everything of that nature gets handled at the county level, so they would definitely be accountable to that. But as for their customer base, generally these places are serviced by delivery platforms such as Grubhub, Uber Eats, things like that. I know they have a delivery range, but I think it would extend beyond Southfield.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's essentially a catering kitchen, but it's probably more 7 days a week than a catering kitchen might only be for Friday, Saturday, Sunday event type spaces.
Yeah, and if I may add, I mean, like delivery services like Grubhub and others, they do deliver a little bit farther into the night than a standard restaurant might or would. So definitely having these types of uses in one of our light industrial or industrial zoning makes more sense, only because it is less impact on residential zonings. That late into the night having delivery services could be a problem.
To the chair, Commissioner Martin, just as a point, you have the dark stores, and you also should probably include the last minute delivery in the same category. Because just as they're going to have someone to deliver their food, such as Grubhub and others, you could do the last minute delivery to the same way.
Okay.
That was all.
Okay, if there's nothing else, the next one. We mentioned this earlier. There's no existing definition. And if you look through the zoning ordinance in the different districts, you'll see uses listed, but they're not very consistent. They're kind of all over the place. So we came up with a definition, and then we can simplify the use when we address that later on. Indoor recreation center, an enclosed facility that houses recreational uses, including, but not limited to, arcade, archery, baseball, bowling alley, climbing, gymnasiums for basketball and volleyball, hockey, lacrosse, racquetball, soccer, squash, softball, tennis, that's a typo, more squash, which may or may not be operated for profit. So these are something of a larger scale. I know other communities, you'll see a large climbing gym, and it's just a big climbing gym. Or something like the 9 Dome, which, we did have in our zoning ordinance, it did support that, but it wasn't as clear cut as this. So right now, this is proposed for single family residential as a special land use, which it interestingly already is. RC Regional Center, our biggest commercial zoning district, one of the biggest, and then light industrial where it's already also existing.
This is Commissioner Rob Willis. I don't have a question for the indoor recreation center, but I just saw a bowling alley in the back of a huge truck in the neighborhood. And it looks like it could do a number of the things: basketball, bowling alley, archery. Is there any consideration to try to either look at or regulate these in the same, the truck in the same way?
I'm sorry, did you say a truck or?
I'm sorry, a truck that is a commercial bowling alley. And if you can do a bowling alley, I can see a number of other things you can do with a truck that size.
Huh. Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with that, but we can look into that.
Okay. That was my question. Thanks.
Yeah, it's getting pretty popular also, the truck bowling alleys. The big semi truck.
Yeah, I don't know how we would regulate that, to be honest with you, but we can look into that.
When I saw it was on the street, it was really difficult to get through. And I'm not sure. And my thought was, this is too big for a typical residential street. At least that was my thought. I wasn't thinking about the activity. I was just hoping my car wouldn't get torn up.
This is Geraldine Stevens Gunn. I put a link to an article regarding that bowling alley in the chat.
Interesting. Yeah, we will definitely look into that. I'm unfamiliar with that. There's nothing else with this. The next one is religious assembly. So if you look through our zoning ordinance, you'll see certain districts allow assembly and certain districts allow religious uses, and they don't always overlap. But our legal department has determined that any kind of assembly also extends to religious uses. So we're just trying to clean that up. So anywhere it says assembly, we're going to add religious institutions so it's clear. So the RS, RC, B3, and also B2 with special land use, these are the ones that they mention assembly, but they don't mention any kind of religious use also. So we're going to tack on religious institutions to that use, just so it's clear. Moving on. So B3 drive-through special land use requirements. In 2017, restaurants with drive-throughs in B3, if you want to do that, that was moved to special land use only. So when we made that move, we added a few conditions to protect residences and control nuisances. One of these was a stipulation that it had to be 500 feet from residential zoning. I can't speak to how this, what the intent was there, but we're reviewing it now. It seems very difficult and too restrictive. So we are proposing to remove this restriction. I don't know. I think you'd be hard pressed to ever have a new drive-through in a B3 with this condition. Or at least it would make it very difficult. Also, in an effort to kind of beautify and improve aesthetics, we're also proposing to add some language that allows the mandatory wall in that stipulation to be replaced with a residential fence subject to the review of the city planner. Okay. Next, we have durable materials. So this is something that's it's a building department requirement, and I think it's something that we require of our applicants, but it's not in the general provisions of the zoning ordinance. So that we're proposing to add this in. So This addresses the requirement that we need a durable material for the first 3 feet of the building or up to the sill line. It also addresses that if someone is proposing a entirely glass facade, they need 18 inches of that said material. And then it includes that we require mandatory submittal of materials and color or paint swatches. So this would be among the requirements of what we would need for a general site plan or elevations.
Do you have the continuation of that definition? So I remember reading it earlier today, and it seemed to only include brick and stone. It didn't include any sort of concrete masonry units, which is more likely what you're going to get. And brick is not really that durable of a material, honestly, that close to the ground. So I could see not allowing just a typical concrete block, but if it's a decorative concrete block, such as a split face or an integral color or a ground face, that's seems to be excluded because it only says 2 allowed materials as a durable material. I don't know if it was the full attachment that you emailed us.
Yeah,
the rest of the definition.
I'll add in the definition for next meeting.
Yeah, it just seemed to look. It seemed to be very limiting.
Yeah, I got to review it. I think it does allow, the building official to have a say in it. So ultimately, the building official can make a ruling if it's durable or not.
Right.
These are things like
I have a
wood.
question on this.
I know traditionally things like ethos we have determined that's not durable.
Right.
I know
Vinyl siding. Some things are obviously not durable, but there's 3 that really are, and it only had 2 of them in the definition.
And what was the third you said? Masonry?
Well, like a concrete masonry unit, a concrete block, but then I understand you don't want just a plain, gray $1 concrete block from Home Depot, but there's a lot of nice decorative ones that are textured or have the colors built into the mix, and they don't require. Those are very commonly what you use at the base of a building. In addition to brick and stone. Yes.
In that 18-inch portion, is there any requirements for reinforcement if a parking lot is directly adjacent or facing the building? Because we've had, not necessarily in Southfield, but we've seen quite an increase in the number of cars going through the front of a building, and reinforced concrete or something would help minimize the possibility of car going into a building.
I don't think we have anything that specifically addresses that. I don't know if that's much of a building code issue. I think that this ordinance was created, or this rule was created ideally with that in mind, to protect the cars, protect the building from the cars rather. I don't know if we have anything about interior reinforcement.
If I could just add, I do believe that there is something in the ordinance that talks about having some kind of a barrier to keep vehicles either from bumping into fences or into buildings. And when we do a site plan review, if we do find where we have a parking space that's adjacent to a building, we require bumper blocks in order to be installed so that we can minimize the opportunity for a building or for a vehicle to go too close to a building, thus hitting the building and damaging it. So we do require bumper blocks under those circumstances. And then also if there are sidewalks, then we do require that those sidewalks be raised sidewalk for the same reason, to try and minimize any opportunity to go over the sidewalk and hit the building. So when we do our site plan reviews, we do look at that, Mr. Martin, to make sure that we can minimize any damage to buildings with bumper blocks especially.
Yeah, I agree, Jeff. I was going to say, please don't try to, it's again, mixing building code with zoning, because this is talking about what's visible from the exterior of the building, which I agree with. And then the site planning standards, the distances of walks and the bumper blocks and everything you said also prevents the second problem that was brought up.
Correct.
I see the definition now. I was flipping through. It says stone, brick, or other materials determined to be adequately durable for commercial application by the city planner or building material, which would include that. I figured like almost the most common material used is not listed in there. I just didn't know if it'd be worth just throwing in one more word.
Okay. There's nothing else with this one. This is a simple one. General office in I-1 industrial. It's existing as a special land use on Telegraph only. What's, you know, if you weren't aware, Telegraph between 8 and 10 is almost exclusively I-1. We've had a lot of people who want to go into office buildings that they look and appear to be office buildings, but that special land use, it's a hurdle. I think the planning department's determined it's a little too restrictive, so we're proposing to change this to an outright permitted use.
Yeah, if I could just add to that too, obviously this is one of those circumstances, situations where, you know, we as a city, as the planning commission is aware, we're supposed to be redevelopment ready. And for a general office use to be a special land use and industrial, as Kyle had pointed out, there's so much general office along that particular section of Telegraph Road that to make it a special land use really doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. And that's the reason why we'd like to make it a permitted use instead.
There's nothing else. Auto rental in I-1. So this does exist in some other zoning districts. And there are some other auto-related uses that are permitted as a special land use on Telegraph. Things like logistics and dispatch. I know, you know, limousine rental services and taxis are permitted. So we view this as very similar to that, but technically there's no auto rental in I-1. So we're proposing for that to be in I-1 as a special land use on Telegraph only. We'd be using some of the language from OS where auto rental is permitted with a special land use, and taking that language and just applying it to industrial. That's actually the last one. Thank you, commissioners. I know it's it's a lot. We've got quite a few, but I really appreciate your input.
Yeah, to the chair, this is Commissioner Culpepper.
Yes.
Yeah, Kyle, to your point being a lot, thanks a lot. At least, as we've always tried to say, is at least you need to have something on the books. Being proactive and having something on the books, letting people know what can be done and can't be. So I think you did a great job. Of course, there still needs to be a little work on giving some specifics and details. But I think these amendments are great, and I appreciate you going forward doing this. And I know we'll see more on it. So thank you a lot, Kyle. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks. Did we ever hear from the applicant for item number 1?
Yeah, I did not, Mr. Chairman. Again, I did make an effort to reach out to him. Did not get a response back. So this particular item, and I guess I leave it up to the commission. I mean, I could go through it, but without having the petitioner here, and this being the only study meeting thus far this month, I guess I leave it up to the commission if you want me to try and bring it back at next week's meeting, the long range study, if you want me to, or not. I guess I leave that up to the commission.
Or if
Otherwise, we'll bring it back in August.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if they weren't ready and missed the meeting and we don't really have anything else, maybe it should just be pushed a month if it's the only project, only other project.
Yep, and again, staff is fine with that. They would have received numerous WebEx invites, as well as I noted during the meeting, I did try to make contact with them to no avail. So staff can bring this back to the commission in August. Again, it has been advertised, so you would have to make a motion to move it to a date certain, which would be the August agenda, and we could do that on the 28th.
Unless anybody on the commission had a strong reason to try to hear the project without the applicant.
Not hearing any, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner Huntington, I would say move it to August 28th.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
So then
Go ahead,
go ahead, sir.
Okay. The public comment portion of the meeting.
Yep. So this is the portion of the meeting where we give the public the opportunity to speak. If there's anyone who would like to speak during this particular section and portion of the meeting, the telephone number and then the event number are both shown on the slide currently. You need to call 1-415-655-0001, and then when you're prompted, put in the event number that's shown on the screen, which is 179-294-6299. You would have 3 minutes to make your comments. And again, we give you the opportunity right now to call in. And Mr. Chairman, because you are aware that there's a little bit of a delay between this live version and what's shown online, we'll wait a minute or so and see if we have anyone who calls in.
While we're waiting, I'd like to ask Commissioner Stevens-Gunn, you put 2 references in the chat for the site. I don't know if those will save when the meeting's over. Can you send that to the commissioner, please? The 2
Sure,
references.
I'll be happy to.
Thank you. And just as another point, I don't know if the trailer thing included any mention of the swimming pool that the city of Detroit used going to neighborhoods and small neighborhood parks. Truck mounted.
Mr. Chairman, we have no one calling in for public comment.
Okay. Public comment section is now closed. Next, we have the minutes from May 12th and May 26th.
Yep, and we will be sending those minutes to you before your regular meeting on the 28th. So I would say you should expect to see them probably on the 23rd with your agenda for July 28th.
When we when you mentioned turning the first item until the 28th, I think Mr. Huntington said August, and was talking about July, correct?
You kind of broke up there, Mr. Barton, but I think the gist of it was, yeah, the first item, because it was advertised for, the Planning Commission does have to take some action. In this case, the action would be to postpone that item to a date certain, which would be the August agenda.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Any other miscellaneous items?
Yes, sir. City Planner Crow just wanted me to pass on to the Planning Commission that we as staff do get alerted to master plans from adjacent communities when they are going through the process of updating their master plan. Currently, we have Lathrop Village and Bingham Farms that both have reached out to the city of Southfield. We have given the opportunity to review those master plans just as we would send out to the adjacent communities when we went through ours. We just wanted to let you know that that those have come in, that staff is currently doing reviews on those. And if the planning commissioners have any questions with regard to those particular master plans, to reach out to staff, and then we can then follow up. We just wanted to let you know that those do come in, and that we as cities do have opportunities to review and comment on those plans, which we have been doing since they started coming into us.
Are they available for us to actually review?
We do have copies of them, and I believe that I'll have to see in what state they are. I believe we got them electronically. I would have to look at that again and follow up with you.
I just think it'd be interesting to see the salon parking requirements on Southfield Road in Lathrop Village. It seems to be a pretty heavy salon population along there in all their office buildings.
Yeah, staff has no other comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is the next meeting's the regular meeting?
I mean, we do have a scheduled long range meeting on the 21st. However, it seems like the items that we've discussed, at least the first one with regard to the vacation request of the alley, didn't have any issues. We do know that we need to do some work on the text amendments, and we can make those amendments and then send that back out to the commissioners before the 28th meeting. So if you're satisfied with that, then we would see you then for the regular meeting on July 28th.
Works for me. Anyone strongly want to have the meeting next week?
I like your word strongly. I like your definition, Mr. Chair, strongly.
So I drove a long distance to an in-person planning commission meeting last week for a project, and I was so happy to be there, even though I was driving in a car for a long time. It was good to be back in a room with presentation. So that was
all in due time, sir.
Interesting thing. I was like, man, this is a long way to drive, but at least we're having an in-person meeting and trying to move things forward in life. But, all right.
That brings to mind a question. If I read correctly, the city is not having built open meetings until September, face-to-face meetings, that is?
That is correct as it stands today, Mr. Martin. Yes, that is correct. The city is looking to start up in-person meetings in September.
Of course, they pick a time when I'll be out of town. Thank you.
All right. Hearing no other business, meeting's adjourned.